It was rather strange to fall asleep and find myself in some desert. More precisely, it was not a desert in the full sense of the word. There was no sand here. Just bare earth, more like a wasteland. In the distance, some change in the landscape was visible, so I headed there with a clear conscience. I had to have some kind of landmark, otherwise I would end up walking in circles. I walked there for quite a long time. The surrounding space practically did not change at all, and only the landmark that I initially noticed gradually approached. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a pedestal on which some creature was chained. With a huge number of tails, such a thing is not found in nature. A mutant, perhaps? Considering that around me and this strange creature there are wastelands, which could very well be called Chernobyl, then it is quite possible. But when it spoke in a human voice, I almost had a heart attack. "What have you come here for, little human?" It was clear that this was not a dream. If this had happened in a dream, the surrounding space would have changed 10 times already, but it didn't even think about it. Hello, he also has human intelligence, so it is better to be polite. "Can you tell me where I am?" The question was still relevant, because it was not possible to determine one's location independently. At least because there was no sun here. It was light, but there was no sun. "You're not that Uzumaki girl." That last word said a lot to me. It would have been better if it hadn't said anything, honestly. Naruto's world. Wonderful. And this, I take it, is Kurama. All that's left is to find out which of the Uzumaki girls we're in. Mito or Kushina? That's the question. And you asked a funny question, the Biju chuckled in the meantime. But I'll answer you, so be it. We're in the subconscious of little Uzumaki. Does she even have a name? Both women could be small for him. True, Kushina fits this description better, but who knows? Name? Rumbled the demon. Who do you take me for, small fry? That I should remember the names of some people? Got it. This is where I was in for a bummer. What can you do in the subconscious of a Jinchuriki? It was surprisingly boring. At first, I tried to explore the surrounding area, but it turned out that no matter where I went, I still ended up with a chained Kyuubi. And there was nothing interesting in the surrounding area, so I quickly got bored. Kurama was much more interesting, but since this individual had no desire to communicate, I had to entertain myself. For example, come up with theories about his structure. Look for evidence and refutations of my own assumptions. I never liked biology, but what can you do when you're bored? I think I've been sitting here for a year already, although I can't vouch for the accuracy of my measurements, since I lost track already on the second 100 days. Why I showed up here at all remained a mystery to both me and Lise. With Kyuubi himself, a kind of neutrality has been established. He allows me to sleep on him. Well, really, I can't sleep on rocks and the ground. And I don't bother him with my stupid theories about his own structure, because his answer "I consist of chakra and nothing but chakra" didn't suit me at all. True, Kurama would occasionally get emotional and start not only answering my questions, but also telling me something about his life. Then I had to go quiet like a mouse under a broom and not make a single sound, because otherwise the fox could stop telling me, remembering that a pitiful little human doesn't need to know such things. I couldn't shake the feeling that I would definitely need any knowledge about this world. Our almost idyll was interrupted by a rude yank of me from my subconscious. The pain came immediately. Mom. What are they doing to me? I couldn't take it anymore. I screamed. Something was cooing above me right away. I didn't understand a word, if I heard them at all. However, it was logical, the language barrier was still there, although it didn't stop me from communicating with the demon, since it was more of a mind-to-mind contact than words. My eyes didn't really see anything. And I didn't understand the words. My body didn't really obey me, and it was so weak that even if it had obeyed. Meanwhile, events were unfolding above me, the meaning of which I would never have understood if not for my knowledge of the canon. With my own powers, a blind and deaf kitten, I was only able to catch that my hot water bottle was returned to me, and cold lips kissed my forehead, clearly belonging to a dead creature. So, Shinigami, or whatever they call the god of death here, came for my soul. True, he did not try to remove me from my body, which seems to be a plus. But now, it seems to me, it was very clearly explained to me how a baby, who did not have a sufficiently developed chakra system, survived the sealing of the Biju. Everything was simple. The mother takes the brunt of the blow. Or do you think that Gaara's mother accidentally died during childbirth? No. Uzumaki mothers exchanged their lives for the lives of their children. The Shinigami's number of souls coincides with the report. He has no claims to the living. Everything turned out disgustingly simple. Commentary on Part 1. BVV makes paw print. Equals Part 2 equals. My new body turned out to be a boy's. To be honest, I hoped that the presence of my soul, which was female in the past, would somehow influence my new gender. Although this would have provided additional problems, because in Japan, as far as I remembered, there were well-rooted stereotypes about the role of women in life. Naturally, there were exceptions, like Haim Senju, but these were just that, exceptions, and even though Japan was somewhat conditional here, I still did not want to encounter something like this, and this created a slightly ambiguous situation. But, in any case, the hopes were in vain. Genetics, coupled with biology and canon, turned out to be inexorable. On the one hand, it was bad, because I was used to a woman's body. I have certain habits that can give me away. Of course, not now, while I was a baby, but in the foreseeable future the situation could escalate. On the other hand, it was great. Being a male shinobi is much easier than being a female shinobi, if you understand what I mean. As I said before, it removed a whole range of narrowly focused questions and problems. Another bonus column could include my own passion for slash. It didn't sound like a fetish, but such an experience would clearly be new, and as a true creative person, I would be interested in trying out all the sensations, so to speak, on my own skin. In general, there were incomparably more advantages, by a whole one, so I was not going to be sad. Yes, I would have to relearn to address myself in the masculine gender, but considering that I had to memorize a huge layer of information about the new language that everyone spoke here, this did not seem like such a big tragedy. I woke up in the Uchiha clan, which was a bit sudden, but overall it was understandable. I determined the affiliation itself quite quickly and easily, by the mural on the wall. My vision had clearly improved during the time I was sleeping, and that was really good. However, it didn't become any less upside down. Well, I hadn't really thought about the fact that children see the world upside down for a while, so the first few times I was frankly scared, but I got used to it more or less. The quality of my vision wasn't the only thing that changed in my body. My stomach was churning. I was madly hungry. I tried to move, completely forgetting that I was in a small and clumsy body, so my plan to get food failed almost instantly. But with my awkward attempts I woke up my neighbor. He turned out to be a pretty cute baby, about 6 months older than me, if I, with my vision, determined that correctly. He really did seem pretty cute, but all the charm was instantly destroyed as soon as he started wailing as if a pig was being slaughtered alive. I silently looked at all this for a few seconds, thinking about the transience of existence. Then I spat and joined in. I had absolutely nothing to lose. This behavior, to my own surprise, did produce results. Soon enough, a woman appeared and shoved her breast at both of us to shut us up. A very wise decision on her part, to be honest, and even my displeasure with the whole situation of being in the body of a helpless baby in general calmed down somewhat. Clearly, we were not the first ones in her care. This was noticeable both in our reflexes and in the way we were both held. After feeding, we were returned to the crib. On a full stomach, of course, I felt sleepy, but I managed to hear, amidst the strangers babbling in a foreign language, how the woman called the child Sasuke-chan. Uchiha. Sasuke. However, it is logical. I myself should have guessed where they could have placed the suddenly orphaned Jinchuriki and son of the Yondaime Hokage. The next time I managed to stay awake for a longer period of time, successfully surviving not only feeding but also washing, after which I was left to my own devices again. And here's what was curious. I was clearly developing faster than my own, now apparently former younger brother. It was easy to remember something about shinobi children developing faster than ordinary people who are not endowed with a developed kirakuki. Just a week after the last awakening registered by the brain, I could not only sleep all the time, but also stay awake for a couple of hours. At this time I was watching Sasuke. He was already crawling very briskly, trying to get up and even talk, but it looked pretty bad, although it vaguely resembled Japanese. But I soon got tired of such a primitive activity. Messing around and sticking into the wall had never been something like a favorite pastime, so I enthusiastically began trying to repeat his movements. You have to start somewhere? Not everything worked out and not always, and my body was terribly weak, which really irritated me. And then I remembered that chakra allows you to increase your physical characteristics. I need it more than anyone else. And I started trying to feel the chakra. Luck smiled on me pretty quickly. Either because it was still a foreign substance to me, or I was just lucky. But at this point, luck actually ended. The chakra channels were so thin that you could consider them non-existent. The only relatively thick chakra channel I found led to the large fuin on my stomach that held the Biju. However, what did I want with such a core? It was little better than the channels, just as frail and weak. Of course, I didn't think about how dangerous it could be. I guess I foolishly hoped that nothing would happen to me for it. The other time travelers got away with it, so why should I be any worse? As it turned out later, it didn't go without it. I stayed with the Uchiha for a relatively short time. A month later, a shinobi in a mask came for me with a document signed by the Hokage himself for my removal. Despite the obvious discontent, they gave me up. They sent me to an orphanage, which was quite logical. But wouldn't it have been easier to leave me in the Uchiha clan, any? Then they wouldn't have had to allocate money from the state treasury for my upkeep, and there wouldn't have been all that nonsense about the bad treatment at the orphanage. But I'm a Jinchuriki, so it's not easier. They greeted me normally at my new place of residence, but only until that bastard blurted out that I had been taken away from Uchiha. I would have killed the idiot. Professional indifference instantly turned into fear and hatred. In principle, she had the right to do so. But this was in relation to the Uchiha. Not to me. Okay, I admit it. The Uchiha are strong mentalists, on par with the Yamanaka. They really could have changed something in my brain, but that was if I didn't know that I was a Jinchuriki. Which even the most crazy Uchiha wouldn't even think about. After all, they can only take control of the Biju in the real world, but in someone else's subconscious, where despite the ceiling, the Biju is king and god. Kurama enlightened me about this during our get-togethers over the past 9 months. And in general, my belly dweller's chakra is quite poisonous, as the same belly dweller told me. I didn't dare check exactly how quite poisonous the chakra of the 9-tailed demon fox itself was, so to speak. The teacher didn't know about it. And, as she thought, she was rightly afraid of some kind of gift from Uchiha. I behaved calmly, didn't forget to repeat after the other children, which made her even more nervous. The children didn't understand her attitude towards me, but apparently, they felt it subconsciously and copied it. I was becoming an outcast. However, this didn't upset me at all. They would interfere less. Commentary on Part 2. BVV, Bacino. Part 3 Everything was fine in the orphanage, because it had been running smoothly for many generations. How many orphans do you think there are here? Oh. There are about a couple hundred of them. There were especially many orphans a year or two older than our class. The war had just ended. At that point, everyone was rushing to start families, and then bam, and the QB attacked. This applied not only to shinobi children, but also to civilians. Yes, about the shinobi. When I was 5, the medics came to the orphanage and examined me, not only for my general health, but also for the presence of chakra. Subjectively, they didn't find any in me at all. I know better. It all went to maintaining the seal. But they still shoved me into a group with the shinobi larvae. Apparently, even here, reporting is above all else. A Jinchuriki must have chakra, and he will have it. And it doesn't matter how things really are. After that, they tried to bully me not only by ignoring me, but also by physical violence. Last time, at school, they tried to bully me too. I laughed at it then and forgot about it, because they didn't dare to ruin things, and they certainly didn't get into hand-to-hand combat. Everyone remembered that my hand was heavy and that I did martial arts. I wasn't embarrassed to explain this to the boys here either. This body, of course, hadn't done anything yet, but what does a 5-year-old need, especially one who doesn't know how to use chakra? Of course, they punished me, even the Hokage came to chat and shame me, but when did I ever worry about such trifles? The teacher, by the way, having received confirmation of her theory, relaxed and even became kinder. If she had known that this would happen, she would have thrown out something like that even earlier. Then, at the age of 5, classes began. They taught the most basic things, like counting and writing. The world of literature finally became accessible to me. I was lost to society for almost a year, because there were so many new books. And they all had to be read. How I missed it. Having emerged from the books, I discovered another problem. Lack of communication. Of course, I am an introvert, who a priori does not need much communication, but unfortunately, there was no one to communicate with. I deliberately scared all the boys, the girls were scared of me themselves. However, I myself was not eager to communicate with children, their mentality and positions were too different. After just a minute of communication, my head was splitting. This, unfortunately, has carried over with me from that life. As soon as I don't feel like it, my head immediately hurts. Especially when I have a fever. Adults were not interested in me. I desperately missed my father, with whom we argued about politics in the evenings. Not seriously, of course, but still. And here? Only forays into the village saved me. These were carefully planned sabotage forays. I painted over my mustache scars with charcoal and finished drawing a triangular nose. I also made a headband with ears especially for this. I told everyone I met that I was my mother's cat. All my forays were made only in this disguise. I still remembered that in the anime Naruto was identified by these birthmarks/scars/whiskers. All evidence was then carefully cleaned and removed. Then followed a careful disappearance from the territory of the shelter and freedom. In the village, you could chat with a merchant who was unoccupied at the end of the day or even help him, hoping that in the future I would get a discount. And also, you could catch a ghost and get him to tell a story, or even better, something on a historical theme. Historical events are always better learned from eyewitnesses. They usually demanded little in exchange. I was usually able to handle their small unfinished business. Otherwise, I had to leave empty-handed. I was looking forward to the time when I could move out of here and not depend on anyone. Because despite the well-oiled system, the shelter was really stressing me out. Yes, about the Uchiha. Many time travelers tried to save them somehow. You can call me an egoist, but I will not get involved in this. If the same Fugaku could not come up with another option, like a coup, then who am I to get involved in this? Someone tried very hard to create this image of the Uchiha clan as traitors and backstabbers. Everyone remembers that officially there are no missing nin from the Uchiha clan. Which means that the Biju was released by one of their own Konoha members. And during the attack, their quarter suffered the least. People instantly put 2 and 2 together and got 4. More precisely, 4-, but that's my point of view, with the hindsight of the canon and in general. Apparently, the coup was a desperate attempt to save at least someone. For example, children and women. Because if the crowd decides to get rid of the Uchiha clan, they will succeed. They will chop them down with axes, despite all their shinobi skills. What was it that Pushkin said? The Russian rebellion is great and merciless. This rebellion, of course, is not Russian, but no less merciless. I wasn't going to stand between the angry crowd and the Uchiha clan. I wanted to survive myself. And they were adults, let them deal with their own survival. Commentary on Part 3. BVV makes a smear of ink-stained paw print. equals 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 part 4 equals 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 equals. And now, this day has come. And I'm not talking about the day of entering the academy, as you might think, but about moving to a separate apartment. They were, of course, timed to coincide with each other, but the move took place a couple of days earlier. This was so that the shinobi larvae could buy the necessary supplies for home and the academy. Usually, the first allowance is twice as much as usual, and children are also given an adult allowance, because how can 7-year-olds, even if they are independent, figure out that they need, for example, shampoo? They will forget something. Somewhere the merchant will be stubborn or even try to cheat. That's what an adult is needed for. In general, they took care of the children, but somehow, magically, all the accompanying people disappeared so quickly that I was left without an adult. Are they afraid of Jinchuriki, or what? Although they shouldn't know about it. If the whole village knew about it, as it was shown in the canon, they would definitely try to kidnap me. They kidnapped the same Hinata. And what's stopping them from kidnapping a little Jinchuriki? Especially if you can find out who this Jinchuriki is from everyone you meet. In general, the attitude of the villagers towards me was strange. More precisely, when they saw me without disguise. I had to restore it in the nearest corner. After that, they paid no more attention to me than to any other boy, of whom there are a huge number running around the hidden leaf, I tell you. Getting to the apartment, I had to get lost, but after my mother's "let's go get lost" it wasn't scary. And a couple of shinobi I met were happy to help me. When asked about the escort, I cheerfully said that he was lost. The guys chuckled at this, but showed me the house. The apartment was clean, a little shabby, but nothing serious. I had to do an inventory and make a shopping list. I really needed a lot of things. Bowls, spoons, ladles, washcloths and bed linen. The apartment wasn't particularly well equipped either. No, there was a refrigerator and a stove, but the microwave I absolutely needed was missing. This was also sad because I couldn't just go out and buy one. Well, or rather, as far as I remember local prices, I could, but I would go hungry for the rest of the month. And that's extremely harmful for a growing body. And I'm not ready for such feats yet. I didn't want to go shopping 2 days in a row, since I didn't know what I needed to get to the academy. So I postponed the trip for everything I needed until the next day. In the meantime, I could start settling into the apartment. Or better yet, explore the surrounding area. Check the route to the academy and the hospital. Tomorrow, it wasn't the academy that was waiting for me, but the hospital. As I understand it, there would be another examination, and based on its results, we would be assigned to classes. There I would also meet with a representative of the academy, who was obliged to make sure that I had everything by the start of classes. Everything is thought out and worked out, rat. And we also need to stop by the legendary Ichiraku. We need to try the local ramen, especially since they have Naruto there. Naruto eats Naruto. Cannibalism. In that life, I loved custard noodles. Some say it's disgusting, but I liked it. And the local stuff should be even tastier, because it's all natural. Moreover, I didn't feel like cooking, and there weren't really any groceries. I had postponed my shopping trip until tomorrow, so the apartment was sterilely empty in that sense. Ramen turned out to be exactly as tasty as I imagined it, even tastier. I like it. It's clear why Naruto loved it so much, because it combined 3 main qualities: tasty, inexpensive, and you don't have to cook it yourself. The latter was a priority for me, because I'm a lazy ass who won't cook just for herself. In general, when my body was already formed, I could not eat for a whole day, having borrowed this talent from my mother. The exploration of Konoha continued until late evening. It was absolutely necessary to climb Mount Hokage. To sketch the village from above, because there was such a view from there. I always carried my own notebook, bought with the first money from helping the merchants, with me, just for such a case. I was not a professional artist, but my grandfather and uncle even organized a couple of exhibitions of their works. Naturally, they taught me the basics, and instilled in me a love for drawing. Now it came over me. And there was no need to rush to the shelter. How good. In general, due to the need to return to the shelter, I did not go far from it. And I did not have much time to explore the village. And now I was making up for all these years. Naturally, there were some adventures. I completely forgot about the curfew. It seems like I've been a boy for 7 years now, but my memory is still that of a girl. The Uchiha caught me safely. They scolded me, shook their finger at me for the first time, and walked me home. Because in the dark I even managed to get a little lost. Commentary on Part 4. BVV was here Paw Prince. Equals Part 5 equals. Recruitment to the academy was held twice a year, in April and October. If initially the October recruitment was accepted at the beginning of the month, then after the attack of the nine-tailed fox, the day of the ceremonial assembly was moved to the 15th. By the way, yes, since I mentioned this tragedy, it is worth saying that it was not a holiday in our understanding of the word. This day was the day of all those who died during the Third World War and the attack of the fox. They singled out this particular day only because the Hokage died then. Memorial Day was officially proclaimed the 3rd, as a tribute to their student. The day was officially a day off. There were festivities and a festival. As I already said, it was not a holiday. It was simply the local mentality. Remembering the dead should be fun. The usual reaction of a normal, reasonable person. After all, if you grieve for everyone with that amount of deaths, then no nerves will be enough. By the way, we were settled into apartments on the 12th. On the 13th, a trip to the hospital, and the next day was free. That's when I went shopping. I started with household items, continued with school ones, and finished with food. I spent almost an entire day on this. And more than half of my stipend was licked up like a cow's tongue. And the next day, the academy was waiting for me. It all started innocently enough. I got up long before I had to leave. I could have slept for another 2 hours, but I was still worried. Not everyone gets to go to first grade for the second time. I nervously glanced at my watch, counting the time. Oh, by the way, about watches. The locals didn't wear them at all, only wall ones. I'll let you in on a secret, a very revealing factor for a shinobi's improved hearing. At the academy, they'll teach us to tell time by the sun and any other signs. The clock showed 20 to 8 and I happily swept out of the house. Getting to the academy in 10 minutes from my house is not a problem. The problem arose almost immediately and was that, as usual, I had mixed up the time. The assembly was scheduled for 9, and now it was only 8. I don't know what happens to my mathematical abilities when I'm nervous, but the fact remains. I arrive an hour early. I needed to kill time somehow, but I didn't have a phone or a book readily available. The matter presented itself. To survey the territory, while no one had shown up here. So there was no need to pay special attention to one's own behavior. Although leaving the Jinchuriki unattended. It is highly doubtful that the 3rd is so careless. So I simply am not able to notice the tail yet. It was a bit sad. But, actually, what did I want? I am not even a genin yet, and as a snot, no grand pianos shine from behind the bushes, so it will not be possible to detect the surveillance of seasoned ANBU in a jiffy. When all the trees were peeled and the skin was torn off, the first shinobi larvae with their parents began to appear. I made a strategically important decision to relocate to a new observation point, namely, the swing. Hello, cannon, so to speak. They were located extremely conveniently, from there everything and everyone could be seen. They must have put it that way on purpose. Or am I being paranoid here, MMM? Everything was fine until I found an Uchiha next to me. Or rather, 2 of his representatives, apparently separated from the general herd, forgive me, clan. And everything would be fine if these 2 Uchiha weren't called Itachi and Sasuke. These 2 were the only ones I needed to be completely happy, seriously. I wanted to turn away and pretend I hadn't noticed them, when I met the gaze of the eldest of the brothers. I involuntarily shuddered. An empty and cold look. How could you drive a person to such a thing? The ANBU mask seemed to have grown to his face. He was only 13 years old, but he couldn't take off the mask. Apparently, he can only partially get rid of it when he's around his own brother, so he stays as close to him as possible. What a horror, he muttered under his breath, but apparently not quietly enough, because his younger brother immediately reacted. What? At the same time, aggressively enough to understand that the attitude towards his brother is not the best of the rest. Since he reacted to my phrase, and did not decide that this was about the Hokage's rant, for example, or about the fact that we will study for 5 years. Well, it turns out everything is so sad in Konoha. I decided that ignoring the question would be the smartest thing to do. I'm not going to go on about post-traumatic stress syndromes and depression here. Especially in front of a 7-year-old. Maybe he'll understand me, but most likely incorrectly. And in front of Itachi himself, I'm somehow afraid to tell all this. Oh, if only there was a psychologist here, there's a sea of clients. Of course, I was interested in all this in my past life, but not so much that I could help in such particularly neglected cases. What saved me from having to be near the Uchiha was the end of the Hokage's speech. We were finally sorted into classes. What will you bring us, dear Academy? Commentary on Part 5. There was a second beta here, Paw Prince. Part 6 In the classroom, I sat as far away from the Uchiha as possible and closer to the window. Iruka-sensei began the roll call. Yes, the canon has not gone anywhere. He would name a person, and that person would have to stand up and tell a little about himself. Naturally, the teacher had to set an example. I thought about what I could say here. Naturally, they didn't ask anything particularly secret here, but it is precisely by these first words that people form an opinion about us. This was very important. When it was my turn, I decided to limit myself to something neutral. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like reading, cats, smart people, and ramen. I dream. I haven't figured it out yet. I can't tell them that I dream of surviving in this world and living at least until I'm 30. And with the work of a shinobi fighter, this is extremely problematic. Unfortunately, I was assigned to Class A, although I hoped until the very end that with my far from chic chakra indicators, they would send me at least to B. Then the teacher talked about the rules at the academy, where everything is, what needs to be brought for tomorrow, and, naturally, a little about the work of a shinobi. I couldn't get Uchiha out of my head. I thought well while the teacher was speaking. True, I wasn't at all pleased with the conclusions I made. But first things first. In order to awaken the Sharingan, one must experience strong negative emotions. Negative emotions of such strength naturally affect the psyche, shaking it. That is, the Sharingan is an indicator of the instability of the psyche of a shinobi. In other words, the Uchiha pay for their strength with their own minds. They are all crazy. Do you still like the Uchiha after such a discovery? According to my conclusions, it turns out that you should run away from the owner of Mangekyo on the first cosmic, and better on the second, to be more reliable. But don't worry, it's not that bad. It's even worse. Nature is a prudent lady. Have you noticed Uchiha's fixation on his family? Not on the clan as a whole, but on a couple of people specifically. Uchiha have so-called anchors. As long as there is an anchor, Uchiha can control his madness. Let's take Madara, for example. While Izuna was alive, everything was more or less fine, but as soon as he was gone, Madara went berserk. Not right away, of course, everything happens gradually. This theory also fits well with Obito and even Itachi, and especially Sasuke. Everyone remembers that Obito went crazy after Rin's death? Itachi went crazy after Shirsue's death and the threat to Sasuke's life. Sasuke went crazy after his brother's betrayal, which can be equated to death in a child's perception. What am I getting at? And the fact is that among the Uchiha there are quiet madmen, and there are violent ones who are dangerous even for their own. More precisely, especially for their own. Such people should have been destroyed in the clan itself. That is probably where all these tales about the curse of hatred come from. There is no and cannot be any curse. It is just that the Uchiha are prone to madness, and their relatives carefully stimulate the awakening of the Sharingan, which only worsens the situation. I also assume that they tried to eliminate Madara as a danger to the clan, but he turned out to be damn strong and managed to survive. And he got offended. What do you think an offended shinobi of such strength is capable of, and not quite normal at that? Exactly. Are you scared? There is a whole clan of madmen living in Konoha. What else do you need for happiness, as one famous captain sang? Oh, and one more thing. Why do you think the Uchiha started to destroy their own crazy people? And not set them on other clans, for example? That's logical, isn't it? I dare to suggest that what Itachi did in canon had already happened in the clan itself. After all, if Itachi hadn't helped Obito with Zetsu, everything would have stopped at a couple dozen killed. Itachi would have been simply overwhelmed by their combined efforts. He wouldn't have been able to cope with a 30-on-1 situation, despite all his talent and genius. In a clan as large as the Uchiha, a couple dozen Jonin would certainly have been found, and not even necessarily Jonin. They could simply overwhelm with numbers. The fact that Itachi was able to wipe out an entire clan was strange, but if you remember the history of the clan, there were precedents like that, just not on such a scale. That's why everyone believed it and didn't even really dig. We were finally allowed to go home. I was happily looking forward to barricading myself in my hole, which definitely didn't have any dangerous animals like Uchiha. But as I was leaving the classroom, I was intercepted by the evil Uchiha. "Don't you dare insult my brother." I blinked my eyes a couple of times in surprise, until the meaning of his words reached me. In general, when I am suddenly distracted or something happens that I did not expect, I am dumbfounded for a while. I will not be able to become a shinobi. I think for a long time in critical situations. "I didn't insult you," I finally answered, and then wounded pride awoke in me. "You'd better watch your brother's emotional state than pick on others." Now Sasuke was thrown off track, but he came to his senses clearly faster than me. What is it and how to monitor it? I praise him, the future Avenger has good intuition. You experience different emotions. There are good and bad ones, and your brother experiences only bad ones. How else can you explain depressive manifestations to a child? And what to do with it? The child asks the right questions. Well done. It would be desirable, of course, to leave A and BU, and even better, leave Shinobi, but as I understand it, this is hardly feasible. Then at least don't remind him about it at home and carefully protect him. Well, and more positive emotions. But you said that Nisen doesn't experience them. Sasuke stared at me with extreme suspicion. I didn't express myself clearly when I tried to explain it so that it would be clearer to you. I'm not stupid, the boy was indignant, but I ignored him. Only the dead do not feel, and your brother feels them, but in a much weaker form. I see, the child nodded sullenly. Well, at least I tried to help one Uchiha. Now I could go back to my apartment with a clear conscience. Commentary on Part 6. This is my personal opinion. You may disagree with it. I don't need to defend your point of view that Uchiha are white and fluffy in the comments. Note, BVV, I'm white and fluffy here. Paw prints. Part 7 == I have been successfully attending the academy for almost a week now. More precisely, it is the last day before the weekend. What a blessing that there are 2 of them here, because in our previous life, in our last year, we had 7 lessons on Saturday, and the last 2 were physical education. I don't know what the school administration was thinking. But I digress. The academy wasn't boring only because I knew virtually none of it. For example, history in short fragments. I never studied Japanese at all. Mathematics was mixed with physics, all at once. And they solved it differently here. Political geography is an extremely necessary and important lesson. It was impossible to find something I didn't need and skip it with a clear conscience. Even this damn etiquette. And all because I'm not a local, and I can't do all these nuances automatically. Our teacher was already absolutely sure that I was making this huge pile of mistakes to spite him. And you can't explain to him that this is practically the first time in my life I'm doing this. At the orphanage, they didn't teach us such subtleties. You think, why do I need etiquette? Sometimes it can save lives and help avoid conflict. That's what it was created for, basically. A tradition worked out over the years, almost centuries, which is very helpful in certain situations. By the way, people became shinobi because of the good and free education. It was a social lift. What's interesting is that most of the D class who failed the exam first go to work off their debt to Konoha. After all, it's not going to teach anyone for free, and then... oh. Many doors were open to them. After all, shinobi are trained well and not at all in a narrowly specialized way. Genin acquires specialization under the guidance of a mentor. I haven't made friends with any of the kids yet either. Uchiha and I are neutral. I was interested in Shikamaru, as he was the smartest in the class, but I hadn't been able to hit on him yet. The other guys were too boring and noisy. I wasn't interested in fights, nor in stupid pranks, where the chance of getting caught was much higher than 50%. The second point played the main role, of course. I never refused to participate in group games. It was relatively fun, and the body still needs movement. And practicing shinobi skills wouldn't hurt either. Overall, everything was relatively good at the academy, and I was looking forward to a well-deserved 2 days of rest. The discovery of some Uchiha in my apartment came as a surprise. A panicky thought flashed through my mind that was it. They would bury me under the nearest bush. I desperately wanted to run away, but it was an idiotic idea, which meant it couldn't be implemented. Why was I so scared? I stupidly blurted out to Sasuke that Itachi should leave ANBU. I couldn't have known that. That's the kind of nonsense that usually gets you caught. Oh no, everything's fine. He had a mask on his belt. Phew, that got away with it. But I'll have to be more careful in the future. However, that didn't stop the Uchiha from showing up. I decided to ignore the uninvited guest. He showed up himself, especially uninvited, so let him start the conversation himself. Shinobi, as luck would have it, was silent, but did nothing. I continued to pretend that he wasn't there. It was already a matter of principle. How did you determine so accurately what Ichikuin needed? Ichikuin is, as I understand it, about Itachi? Otherwise, I don't remember giving out consultations left and right. Apparently, they made some progress there and immediately noticed the improvements. But it could hardly have manifested itself so quickly. Not even a week has passed yet. Something doesn't add up. Didn't they tell you that it's impolite to show up at someone's house without permission? And especially without introducing yourself? I was apparently bitten by Makoto-sensei, whose etiquette lesson was our last today. It seems my rudeness didn't offend him at all. Shursui Uchiha. I wanted to bang my head against the nearest hard surface. Why am I so lucky, with some very dangerous representatives of this clan? Let's not forget, this seemingly harmless guy has Mangekyo Sharingan. And accordingly, he is doubly dangerous. Especially if you remember the properties of his Sharingan. Do you still want to communicate with this cutie? Naruto Uzumaki, not introducing myself in response, although he probably already knew my name, was the height of impoliteness. And with a shinobi of his level, it was simply life-threatening. I was busy in the kitchen, waiting for the conversation to continue. It was already quite chilly outside. No, all of 18 degrees, our summer was periodically like that, but this body was chilly, and I didn't want to get sick. So hot tea was waiting for me, and I could pour some for the guest. Are you going to answer the question? Oops, I forgot about that. What should I answer him? Better to tell him the truth, right? I'm talking to a shinobi with a Sharingan. When you're depressed, to eliminate it, they recommend identifying the cause of your low mood and eliminating it. Yes, that's exactly what it said there. It was clear from your clansman that it was his work as a shinobi, the need to kill, that was depressing him. I tried my best to pretend that I was quoting some smart scroll. They won't rummage through the entire orphanage library, will they? And even if they do, they still won't find it. Children there ruin books with a certain frequency. One can only hope that the term depression even exists here. Commentary on Part 7. Looks like I'll have to put psychology in as well. Doesn't it look like it? Paw prints. Part 8 The number of Uchiha per square meter was rapidly increasing. Fortunately, after reaching a certain point, the number stopped growing. Sasuke was waiting for me at the academy, and he apparently decided that since my advice helped, he owed me. They fed me bento because I didn't bring my own, I was too lazy to cook. And in general, they almost bragged about bento here. I didn't know the tricks of Japanese cooking, and so, in order not to embarrass myself and not tell everyone I met that I wasn't from that culture, I didn't bring bento. The girls were already looking at Sasuke with interest, so one could start to fear for one's life. The fact that the girls saw me as a rival proved better than other factors that homosexuality was widespread here and not even frowned upon. Another Uchiha was waiting for me in physical training class. The story with Itachi ended quite simply. He was sent to the vacant position of sensei at the academy. And no Mizuki-sensei. I wasn't sufficiently informed about the story itself, but based on indirect signs, I can assume that Sasuke, as a reasonable child, soberly assessing his capabilities, went to Shursui. He was worried about his friend, after all. At first, they unobtrusively inquired whether the respected Onii-sen wanted to leave ANBU, and, having received a positive answer, began to think up arguments for Fugaku-san. I don't know why he didn't throw them out at the door, but Itachi was allowed to resign from ANBU. Of course, in honor of the coming new year, or as they call it here, Amisoka. I always thought that they celebrate the new year in March. Or is it in China? It doesn't matter though. And then everything was simple. Sasuke brought news from the academy on his tail that one of the sensei had safely died on one of the missions. Here I should note that shinobi are almost not paid for working at the academy. And they are forced to either go on missions or work somewhere else in the village. So, now about Itachi. I don't know who came up with such a brilliant idea, but the Uchiha pushed Itachi into the academy. The decision is truly brilliant, without any sarcasm. The whole genius was that by sending their children to the academy, parents trust their children to the teachers. Accordingly, they trust the teachers themselves. It follows from this that an Uchiha working at the academy increases the level of trust in the entire clan. And don't say after this that such a decision may not be brilliant. The third Uchiha was waiting for me at home. Shursui, with his usual impudence, had taken to waiting for me at home, sitting on the windowsill. The first week I was quietly furious, but what can I do against a jonin? The second week I simply closed all the windows tightly, but the shinobi invariably ended up on the windowsill, and I spat on this thankless task, especially since it was stuffy in the apartment with the windows closed. Shursui didn't bother me. He skillfully pretended to be, for example, a picture. True, he invariably ate my portion for lunch and dinner. And it didn't seem to bother him that my allowance wasn't unlimited and wasn't designed to feed 2 people. One day, I got fed up with it, especially the Sharingan drilling into my back, and I asked him why he was hanging around. He joked that I was a good cook. I asked if he was getting any food at home, because the food was running low and there was still a week left before the allowance was paid. I'm a terrible cook, a couple of times I even had to ask the Iraianins for help. And constantly asking for lunch at Ichikuan's is somehow indecent. Which doesn't stop you from asking me out, I wasn't in the best of moods then. My mood was ruined by one of our senseis, whom we rarely saw, and I didn't even bother to remember his name, with another dressing down in front of the whole class. In my previous life, this almost never happened, and there were almost no problems with studying, with the exception of English. There, I barely got a C. And here, the whole Japanese language. And if I had no problems with reading, then with writing. Everything was not at all rosy. It irritated me. I was even more irritated by the running out of supplies. Are you against it? The shinobi seemed genuinely surprised. You're the one treating me. Let me tell you, I live on benefits from the village, and it is not enough to feed 2 people. I think this was a revelation for the red-eyed man, and not a pleasant one. Part 9 The next day, instead of Uchiha, I found money on the windowsill. Apparently, he does have a conscience after all. True, there was so much money that I could buy that ill-fated microwave. However, spending such a sum on something that wasn't really necessary was stupid. It would have been much more useful to buy, for example, a pouch with kunai and shinobi boots. Maybe there would be enough left over for some shinobi equipment. I was going to buy sandals for growth. They are expensive, bastards, and a 7-year-old's foot grows very quickly. Uchiha didn't show up the next day, or even a week later. And if at first I simply enjoyed the absence of the Sharingan boring into my back, then it became somehow uncomfortable to return to an empty apartment. It turns out I had managed to get used to it during this month. There was nothing to worry about, though. Shinobi go on missions. Or maybe he just found out everything he wanted, or confirmed his suspicions. True, he was unlikely to do anything to me. After all, the Uchiha are not in the best of favor right now, and they will not forgive an attack on a Jinchuriki. But the emptiness that formed in the apartment from all these thoughts did not go away. Shursui discovered his mark rather late. For a long time, he thought he didn't have one. The mark was in the worst place to read. On his shoulder blades. He had to spin around in front of the mirror for a long time to see everything well. The phrase wasn't the most pleasant for an acquaintance. Apparently, his soulmate wouldn't be in the best mood at that moment. The couple was in no hurry to be found. Even after finding the mark. Then Shursui, sighing, began to climb into the guests through the windows, so that it would definitely be without an invitation. Otherwise, if nothing was done, the couple might not be found. And Shursui really wanted a family. He lost his mother early and practically did not remember him. His father died during the Third Shinobi World War. In Fugaku-san's family, he was still a guest, no matter what Mikoto-san tried to say. Then the advice of some strange boy seemed suspicious, and Shursui went to check. He went through the window more out of habit than out of real necessity. And in response, I received a long-learned phrase. It was unexpected. It was shocking. The child's reaction was strange. Or rather, it simply wasn't there. As if he didn't know anything about his phrase. Perhaps he hadn't found it yet, just like Uchiha himself hadn't found it in his time. It was said that the pars had the inscriptions in the same place on their bodies. Shursui then decided to observe. There was nothing unusual about the boy. Yes, he knew how to cook. True, no one really taught him. He came up with all the recipes himself. It was a little unusual, but only a little. The table is a mess, although the rest of the apartment is relatively tidy. He also honestly washes the floors once a month. Many shinobi, including himself, don't even do that. Usually they have neither the strength nor the desire. He prefers to drink water. If there is no cold one, then milk. When there is neither, then only then does he drink tea. He reads a lot, often just fiction, dug up in the local library archive. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for the advice that clearly wasn't his own. So why was this child his mate? What made him different from the others, exactly like him? Showing a little more calm than the other boys? Shursui didn't have an answer to his own question. All that was left was to cast these thoughts aside. To distract himself with something else. And to hope that another brilliant thought would dawn on him along the way. Missions are the best for distraction. There, thinking about anything other than the mission itself can be extremely life-threatening. It would be even better to take a mission somewhere far away from Konoha, so that he could mess around longer. Usually, it was on the way that wonderful solutions to the problems that arose came to him. The found pair was not a problem in the full sense of the word, but it was worth thinking about how to behave with the child so as not to cause rejection later. Because the Uchiha do not tolerate the pair's refusal well. Shui did not want to replenish the slender ranks of madmen, whose lists are in the clan library. Now his pair is simply tolerating and trying to be polite. Especially on Friday. Shui even asked Sasuke-kun what is so special about Friday. It turned out etiquette. Commentary on Part 9. Paw Prints. Part 10 Finding Uchiha in the same place, as if he hadn't been absent for a month, was strange. You again, this could be either a statement or a complaint to the universe about this impudent creature. Well, what does he want from me again? Aren't you glad to see me? The shinobi raised his eyebrows in mock offense. What I liked about this particular representative of the Uchiha clan is that he doesn't try to keep a straight face. He allows himself to play with facial expressions, and there is no feeling that you are talking to a wall. The very fact that you appeared in my apartment for reasons unknown to me makes me nervous. You still don't understand, do you? The shinobi asked sadly. What? I was thrown up by the prospect of what I might not understand. It's bad to have an overdeveloped imagination. At the same time, it disappears as soon as I sit down to draw. How is that possible, huh? You are my mate. I blinked my eyes a couple of times, trying to understand what he meant. It turned out that the word couple was used here in some context that was unclear to me, or I had misunderstood it from the start. Translation difficulties, so to speak. Seeing my lack of understanding, Shui sighed, climbed down from the windowsill and began to pull off his uniform turtleneck. I felt sick. What was he going to do? The shinobi turned his back to me, and I was surprised to see the inscription written on his shoulder blades. Of course, I didn't remember the first phrase I said when we met, but most likely, it was exactly that. Oops. What was it? Soulmates? Is that it? So that's what all those excitedly whispering girls meant. I have an Uchiha as a soulmate. I need to think about it and preferably come to terms with the fact that I will have to live with a potential madman. Uchiha put his clothes back in place, and I decided to clarify. And in general, more information about this phenomenon would not hurt. And what authors have not come up with in this direction? Do I have the same inscription? Most likely. As you understand, I didn't see, Shui chuckled. I was going to look at my own tattoo alone. Can you tell me anything else about this? Everything turned out to be much more realistic than the authors come up with. I read somewhere on this topic, God created a pair of each creature and even marked it so that I wouldn't miss. In fact, this is just a hint that you can safely ignore, but the locals believe that these are halves of the soul. Even shinobi. Therefore, it is unfortunately impossible to refuse a soulmate. But if you meet and both agree to create a connection, that's when all the mysticism begins. Starting with reading each other's thoughts and ending with determining the location of your own half. Why does everyone dream of being an Uchiha couple? No, seriously. Well, not everyone can like only one type of person. I don't like the Uchiha at all, to be honest. This doesn't apply to Shui, by the way. More precisely, I like him relative to the rest of the Uchiha clan. I like the Nara much more. I've already crossed paths with some of the clan's representatives. They reminded me of my former compatriots in some way. For example, the phrase, "that'll do." And also their ineradicable laziness. Honestly, when you go to their quarter, it's like you're back home. You even feel nostalgic. I've only been to their quarter once. Shikamaru invited me. Regarding the Uchiha couples, everything was simple. Due to their susceptibility to madness, the Uchiha never abandon their soulmates. As it happens in this life. So yes, the girl's dreams become understandable. Everyone wants from rags to riches. By the way, regarding refusing. Konoha is so unique, all other villages remove marks from their shinobi. It's not very difficult or painful, it's just the only thing that the founders of Konoha immediately agreed on. In some clans, for example, the Hyuga, this practice has not gone away. The same as in Root. But no one does it forcibly, to get a Genin's headband. They remove marks so that foolish, overly dreamy children do not get involved with people not allowed by status. At least, that's how things are with the Hyuga. And the hidden villages. I can only guess why they do it. Most likely, they are simply afraid that a shinobi will get involved with the enemy and start leaking information. That's why Konoha is more popular among civilians. It is closer to the common people with its non-destruction of marks. Commentary on Part 10. Paw prints. Part 11 Shursui left me quite late. I immediately headed to the bathroom, where the only mirror in the apartment was. Not the most convenient location. At least, I really missed a mirror in the hallway. I even thought about moving it, but it was so well attached that I had to abandon this idea. Well, yes, my bad, or maybe not so bad, habit of thinking about abstract topics when I start to worry. Before examining the mark, I was shaking with excitement, because now the question of to be or not to be was being decided. Honestly, I was not so worried even before exams. Although then I was practically not worried at all. The phrase turned out to be exactly the one I remembered. True, my leaky memory did not save the original version. However, it did not matter. The hieroglyphs formed a sentence. How did you determine so accurately what Ichikuin needed? I still have to be Shursui's soulmate. It's a shame that sending him away is not an option. Not so much because of the madness, as far as I understand, without a fixed connection, nothing will happen from my refusal, but because the Uchiha might be offended. No, they are unlikely to take revenge on me, but sometimes inaction is even worse. And from the Konoha police even more so. It was much more profitable to get such a clan as an ally. Especially since it will definitely be useful to me. And my chances of survival will increase. Uchiha pairs that have already formed a bond are well guarded. So now, perhaps, the entire great clan will be interested in my survival, and this is a nice bonus. And the fact that I will most likely have to live together with Shursui. It will be even easier for me to survive this way. In fact, our situation is a classic arranged marriage, where the future spouses feel only interest in each other. Honestly, I don't see anything bad in this. Moreover, you can't argue with statistics, half of all registered marriages break up. I mean that you should get married not only for love. Here I get a clear benefit and I don't intend to lose such support. Therefore, even if Shursui and I quarrel, I won't go anywhere from him. And then we can make peace. I don't feel disgusted by him, nor do I hate him. I guess I'm just afraid of all Uchiha because of their hereditary madness. Who knows when he'll snap? But everything's fine, we'll get along, maybe, and as the saying goes, you'll get used to it and fall in love. Having made this decision, I went to bed with a clear conscience. Moreover, it was already late. In the Uchiha clan, meanwhile, things were not so calm. Shursui-kun, you were seen with that boy again. What's with this strange interest? Fugaku-sama looked hard, searchingly, but Shursui had long since lost his temper with such things. Was it for nothing that he got his Mangekyo Sharingan? Do you have something against it? It was unclear why there was such displeasure, but Shursui was not going to back down. The Hokage has something against it. The elder Uchiha grinned unkindly. He asked me to tell you not to show up there again. What caused this? You always have to look for reasons, that's what his father taught him. Not only did it help Shursui in life, but it also saved his long-suffering little body a couple of times. Tell you everything. Including secret information, Uchiha chuckled almost cheerfully, but his gaze remained cold and heavy, like a pair of ice blocks from Yuki no Kuni. I am his mate. I have the right, you have to be able to withstand the leader's heavy gaze. Shursui was still learning, but this circumstance did not hinder him at all. He is a Jinchuriki. You will negotiate with the Hokage yourself. Is that clear? The clan genius had no choice but to nod. You're free, Fugaku shook his head, almost tiredly. Uchiha don't get tired, they go wild, as Kaasen sometimes said, and returned to the documents, and Shursui hurried to disappear from the head's office. He would go to the Hokage tomorrow. It would be bad to disturb the old man at night. Uchiha had no doubt that he would be allowed to communicate with the couple. Madara had taken good care of that, but he might have to make some concessions. What could he offer the Hokage in return, other than his shinobi skills? Commentary on Part 11. Paw Prints. Part 12 I actually thought that I would be the one moving in with the Uchiha, but it turned out that it was not so. Shursui moved in with me with the professionalism of a seasoned shinobi. I did not notice at all when and how his things appeared in this apartment. He did it so carefully that I discovered it only after the fact. I had nothing against him moving in with me. To be honest, I didn't want to see the famous bricks of the Uchiha clan every morning, and it was closer to the academy from here than from the Uchiha, from their outskirts. But, in fact, all of these were just excuses why I didn't want to leave this apartment. All because you can't be evicted from an apartment, for example, when you come of age, or in connection with some other date. The scary word, freebie. Having my own Uchiha is great, I tell you. As soon as I figured out that he wouldn't do anything special for me, I got cheeky. Uchiha was shamelessly put to work around the house that I didn't like dusting. Well, I don't know. I don't like it. Now he went grocery shopping too. Everything was great. Shursui turned out to be unpretentious in everyday life. He didn't scold me for unwashed dishes if I was really lazy in the evening. He looked after his own clothes himself. In general, what was expected from a shinobi? And at the academy, they finally sat us down to meditate. That's when it became clear what early chakra control was fraught with. I had perfect chakra control, but there's always a but. If you compare it to sewing, for example, it turned out that while everyone else was spinning the wheel of the sewing machine, I had to do it all by hand. It wouldn't be so bad if I weren't a shinobi. The time it took to create a technique was noticeably stretched out, and in a fight, that could be fatal. All chakra movements had to be practiced until they became automatic, and this took a lot of time. Even Shursui's help and advice did not contribute much to any progress. Apparently, I'll have to develop my own combat strategy. Because everything that already existed didn't suit me. Of course, if I weren't a Jinchuriki, the problem would be easier to solve. Transfer to administrative work or teaching at the same academy, but I was a demon carrier, and sitting out in the village wasn't an option for me at all, and considering the canon, I had to bother. The strategy one came up with was most like a sniper's. You sit in ambush, wait, and then you have only one blow, which must be fatal, otherwise they will kill you. I simply won't be able to keep up with my opponent. Because of this chakra, problems also appeared in taijutsu. I had a desynchronization of the movement of chakra and ordinary, physical ones. This brought noticeable inconvenience. What many did on a subconscious level, I had to carefully monitor. Accordingly, everything was very, very slow. Perhaps I will be able to fix it, but at the moment it was hard to believe. I desperately wanted to invent here, for example, the Kalashnikov assault rifle. It was the only thing I knew of all the variety of weapons, but I was not interested in anything like that in my past life, and therefore could not implement it. All that was left was to lick my lips. By the way, about all the firearms. It seems to me that the shinobi are deliberately holding back the development of local military technology. After all, there are refrigerators and even radios here. However, for some reason, the latter are never used, except for the mission to capture Tora. Which, it seems, is something like access to C-rank missions. And why? Because radios are a much more revealing factor than watches. It's just not clear why they teach you to use them at all. Oh. I know. Caravans use them when traveling. They don't work over long distances, and they don't need to. Genin are trained in this so that accompanying trade caravans doesn't cause them the same difficulties that they might have if they didn't know how to use radios. The leader, or rather the only one that produces all electronics, is the Iron Country, which carefully guards its secrets. It seems to me that they stuff bugs, or some equivalent, everywhere. This is what allows them to remain neutral. Otherwise, someone would have already gotten their hands on it. And it seems to me that there was a time traveler there too. Moreover, he was most likely a professional physicist, since he set up production from scratch and arranged sales. Or maybe these are just my assumptions. Sometimes geniuses are born, haha. Commentary on Part 12. Paw Prints. Part 13 I think the onset of puberty has made me extremely irritable. Everything pisses me off. Shui is learning to determine the level of my irritation by the frequency of my growl and is even doing a pretty good job. I don't know, maybe this is QB trying to get out, but I periodically have the desire to release the cute little animal so that he can smash everything here to hell, but so far I have managed to resist this temptation. Speaking of Uchiha, you're probably wondering how all this crap with the clan ended. Fugaku-san was planning to stage a coup after all. The thing is, while the clan's reputation among the population had slipped from negative to neutral negative, things weren't so rosy with Konoha's leadership. Neither the third nor Danzo liked Uchiha. They were Tobirama Senju students. What could you expect from them? The Uchiha's position in Konoha was only getting worse from a political point of view, and the clan's ruling elite was certainly not happy with this. Shui, having learned about the impending coup, did everything exactly according to the canon. He rushed to Danzo. And here it is worth making a tactical retreat, since a completely logical question arises. What kind of flea bit my duo, since he so selflessly stuck his head into the manticore's mouth? The thing is, his father was extremely friendly with the head of Root, and Uchiha apparently expected that Shimura's trust extended to him as well. Here he was in for a major setback, but that was in canon, and this is where the differences began. Danzo was no fool and understood perfectly well that if something happened to Uchiha, then there was an 80%, or even 90%, probability that he would get the released Nine Tails instead of Konoha. So Uchiha got off with a slight fright, or rather, he was not frightened at all, but I felt bad when I found out about it. That idiot didn't even suspect how close Shinigami had passed him. By the way, this became the cause of our first major quarrel. After that, everything went quite well. In one night, the clan was thinned out by half, the ANBU did not work cleanly, the ordinary residents of Konoha did not notice anything. The information did not go further than the Kage, elders and clan heads, so the remnants of the clan had nothing to worry about. Passers-by would definitely not attack them in the middle of the street. Everything was relatively okay, except for the near fight between Shui and Itachi, due to the fact that neither of them wanted to be the head of the clan. A unique case in world history. Instead of disputing the throne, the Romanov brothers persistently yielded it to each other. Later, Count Longchiron would pay them a subtle compliment in French: "The members of your dynasty are so noble that they do not rise to the throne, but descend." The Uchiha are not Romanovs, of course, but the situation turned out to be painfully similar. What is most interesting is that both had a very good chance of becoming the head of the clan. Shui was the son of Kagami Uchiha, who was the head of the clan before Fugaku. Fugaku, by the way, became the head by marrying Kagami's eldest daughter, Mikoto. He received the title, something like a regent, while Shui was little. Then the child grew up, but did not strive to become the head of the clan. So both guys were closely related by blood. Shui, as you already understood, was Itachi's uncle, but since the difference between them was only 3 years, they were more like brothers to each other. In addition to the obligatory blood relationship, both guys were considered geniuses. True, after Itachi left to work at the academy, this title was apparently removed from him, but this is not certain. I still do not understand the undercurrents of the Uchiha clan that much. In general, both had everything necessary to become the head of the clan. True, neither of them wanted it. I had to intervene. Find out the reasons for both and explain to Shui that Danzo is eagerly awaiting him to take him as his successor. And combining the position of head of intelligence and counterintelligence with the duties of the clan head will not work out well for him. And Itachi, that you can teach your own brats, you just need to get married. The man liked teaching, got used to it in 2 years. I had to promise that I would help with all my strength and means in the difficult task of managing the clan. As a result, I've been working as Itachi's secretary for 3 years now, together with Sasuke, so as not to have to work hard alone. It's more fun together. There is also the possibility that it is the Uchiha who irritate me so much during my part-time job, or maybe it is the documents. But this does not change the fact that, they are annoying. Commentary on Part 13. From the Romanov series, Episode 7. Well filmed about Russian Tsars. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Paw Prints. Part 14 You know, it's so nice. Uchiha was already getting up, because Danzo had brazenly dumped most of his responsibilities on him. And you don't have to go anywhere. And you can lie in bed, dozing, and listen to him rustling in the kitchen. Wonderful. Until Shursui leaves, I don't get up on principle. But then the door slams, which means it's time to get up. Shursui, who gets up earlier, cooks breakfast for us. I managed to teach him to cook at an acceptable level. This can be written down as a personal achievement, along with my neutral relationship with Kurama. There is no danger of poisoning, and my stomach is strong. What sacrifices would you not make to be able to be lazy? Getting ready for the academy doesn't take much time, but I make it just in time for classes to start. But that's okay, because we have an exam today, and my name is far from the top of the list. So far this morning, nothing has irritated me, and I'm in blissful nirvana. I don't want to take the exam, because after it there will be guts, blood, and something else equally beautiful. But as soon as someone pisses me off, my thoughts change direction completely. I want to get this fucking Hittite and release this rage on the first missing nin that comes along. When the rage is pacified by one of the meditation techniques, thoughts are finally directed in a constructive direction. I hope that in order to pass the exam, I will not have to steal the second Hokage's scroll. Shadow cloning is, of course, cool, but I would like to pass the exam without any adventures. And with my combat tactics, they are completely useless to me. I passed the exam simply and quickly. Only 3 techniques. I tormented them for a whole year so that they would finish at a decent time. They give me a bandage, as well as instructions on what time to come tomorrow. Nothing complicated, as usual, at 9. The other genin had gathered in the academy courtyard, arguing furiously over who would be their partner and mentor. Sasuke, waiting for me separately from the whole noisy crowd, was undoubtedly interested in this too, but he was going to do the smart thing, ask his brother. I already knew that. I was far from the best student at the academy. All thanks to my difficult relationship with Japanese and problems with chakra. Sasuke, on the other hand, shone in almost all of his lessons. The Uchiha clan, despite all of our efforts, is still not considered particularly trustworthy. Therefore, the condition that one shinobi from the Uchiha clan must be on the team to look after the pair will be fulfilled. The Hokage naturally took the one he considered the safest. That is, Sasuke. There must also be a shinobi capable of holding the Biju. And since one Uchiha is quite enough, in the old man's opinion, it will be a copy. They are not going to extract Tenzo from ANBU, honestly. Moreover, Shursui will not give him to them. He himself needs such a unique shinobi. The third could have been any of the girls. Even the notorious Sakura, who didn't leave Sasuke's side here either. She even tried to eliminate me as a competitor, but after I told her about the found pair, she calmed down. Itachi, in honor of the received headband, even got generous and gave me a day off. I should have cleaned the house, otherwise I'm unlikely to have a free minute anytime soon. I doubt that Hataki will shirk his duties, especially since there is someone here to say his fi. And with my absolute